everyone, and welcome to the 5th Annual Cyber Hygiene Event. Glad you're all able to support the event tonight and be with us tonight. I promise you will learn something to protect yourself, your family, your identity, and your data. If we can go to the first chart, please, Ben. The goal of tonight and purpose, as it says there, is to allow you to walk away and understand and appreciate that. And we all know, we're all speaking about things that are happening to all of us each and every day. The increasing number of cyber breaches and attacks that happen on a daily basis, many times daily. With the Internet of Things and the number of devices that we have, it's going to be a constant urgency that we practice cyber safe habits. I'll once again promise that you'll walk away from tonight's session with one or many, hopefully, ways to protect yourself, your family, your identity, and your data. And I suspect many folks watching tonight or after tonight will have had their data breached. I have had that. My data has been breached, my entire family. Wife, daughters, grandchildren, information has been breached because of various successful attacks of data warehouses in multi and sundry servers across the country and other places. We go to the next chart. Our agenda for tonight. We're fortunate to have with us again, and I thank him for co-hosting this with me. And he is a leader. I don't say that very lightly. He is a national leader on cybersecurity, and that's none other than our 2nd Congressional District Congressman James Langevin. Following me, he will provide some remarks. So I'll thank you in advance, Congressman, and I'll thank you when we're finished. Subsequent to that, we're fortunate to have this year with us to provide cybersecurity, a team sport, none other than, I call him Colonel Mike Tetrault, who is the cybersecurity advisor as part of the Homeland Security Agency for Rhode Island. I encourage you to listen intently to what he has to say and share with us tonight. Following that, we will have a Q&A and wrap up. But before I turn it over to the Congressman, and we will say this later as well, any and all questions or comments, if you can please put those in the comment box, and subsequent to the Colonel's presentation, he will seek to, or whoever will seek to address each of those comments. If we need to get back to it, we will try and do that. But I ask you, the means to ask a question and get a question answered is to put that into the comment box. And you'll see that probably scroll across the bottom of the screen. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome, he needs no introduction, our 2nd Congressional District Congressman James Langevin. Congressman, thanks again for co-hosting this with me, and thank you for your leadership on cybersecurity, not just for Rhode Island, but for the nation. Congressman, over to you.
You bet, Senator. Well, right back at you, and I want to thank you for having me on the program once again. This is our 5th year running, as you mentioned, and I just want to thank you, Senator DiPalma, for hosting this event and for, again, having me here to discuss a topic that we all know to be of really vital importance to our nation and the state of Rhode Island and really the entire world. Since this challenge is so pervasive, we are very lucky. First of all, I want to say Rhode Island is very lucky to have informed policymakers like Senator DiPalma, who really care about this important topic, who has the knowledge and the passion to teach everyday citizens about this field that is often shrouded in technical wizardry in a lot of ways. So he's a true expert, and Lou has been recognized by the National Conference of State Legislatures as a legislative leader, where he served on the Cybersecurity Task Force. So, again, thrilled to be joining you, and I appreciate you putting this event together once again, Senator. And we're also fortunate to have with us Colonel Mike Tetrault, Cybersecurity Advisor for the state of Rhode Island, from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA. And I'll be talking about CISA quite a bit as my remarks go on. But let me say that Mike has a distinguished background in public service and in the private sector. Before joining CISA, he served as the Chief Information Officer of the Rhode Island National Guard. And I thank you, Colonel, for your service, and appreciate the fact that you're still working this field of cybersecurity. Very important. And we are very privileged to count on him to lead CISA's efforts in our state as we work together to bolster our cybersecurity defenses and our resilience going forward. So if you don't know much about CISA, that's okay. I can tell you that's probably most people are in the same boat. The agency, after all, is only 3 years old, so there's a good reason for that. You may not be too familiar with it. CISA, though, was established to build the nation's capacity to defend against against cyber attacks through public and private sector engagement. So CISA is within the Department of Homeland Security, and it's really a premier agency within the federal government. Basically, a public-private partnership, in my view, and I've often talked about this, is absolutely necessary because cyber criminals and sometimes even foreign militaries or intelligence services exploit vulnerabilities in the civilian infrastructure owned and operated by private companies and our own personal devices as well. So strengthening CISA and lifting up the value of public-private partnerships have been central to the thinking of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, on which I had served since 2018. Again, something else, the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, can't fault you if you haven't heard about it, but it was created back in 2018, strengthening CISA, and again, lifting up that public-private partnership has been really important. The commission was basically created to develop a consensus strategic approach to defending the United States against cyber attacks or cyber incidents of significant consequence. We recognized that an empowered CISA needed to be a central piece of such a strategy, and the commission developed many recommendations that would strengthen CISA and its ability to work across government and with the private sector to improve our national cybersecurity posture. So I'm proud to report that many of the recommendations from the commission have since been enacted into law. Last year's National Defense Authorization Act actually, in fact, contained over 25 measures developed by the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. So it's no exaggeration to call, I would say, it the most consequential piece of cyber legislation ever enacted as a group in our country's history. It's going to do, I think, make marked differences in protecting the country against cyber attacks of significant consequence. And I have to say that one of the Solarium's recommendations and successes that I'm most proud of was the creation of the Office of the National Cyber Director in the White House. So it's in the Executive Office of the President. This has been a legislative priority of mine now for more than a decade. And it's been one of the, I think, the major pieces of our cyber strategy, if you will, or components of a cyber strategy that's been missing. We didn't really have a coach on the field pulling all of our cyber policies and defenses together, and now we do. Now that Chris Inglis has been confirmed as the inaugural National Cyber Director, his office will be a single point within the federal government to coordinate cybersecurity efforts, and this will, I believe, dramatically improve the coherence of our national cyber strategy and policy going forward. So now that the National Cyber Director is taking a leading role in the development and implementation of a national cybersecurity strategy, and CISA is also now empowered to work across federal agencies and partner with the private sector to implement that strategy, I believe we're now in a much stronger position on cybersecurity than we were just a few years ago. So we're making steady progress. I give a lot of credit to President Biden. I think he's done more than any of his predecessors on promoting the cause of cybersecurity and doing everything we can to strengthen it. And all that being said, though, I still have to say that much work still remains to be done, and the threats that we face from malicious cyber actors have never been more severe than they are today. So no longer you can appreciate are we dealing with cyber attacks that compromise personally identifiable information. We're now talking about threats to the services upon which we rely in our daily lives. And that's what makes it so challenging. We're so connected. The internet is, so pervasive, and we use it every day, whether it's for communications or commerce or banking. The list goes on and on. We all use the internet now every day. It's so baked into our daily lives, and this is most clearly demonstrated. These threats that we face are most clearly demonstrated by the Colonial Pipeline attack that shut off 45% of the East Coast fuel supply this past May. We all remember that day and the aftermath that ensued. Malicious cyber criminals are also threatening our hospitals now, schools, businesses, local governments, and other community institutions with things like ransomware attacks that basically freeze up a computer and prevent you getting from accessing your data or the computers from operating. So really troubling turn of events that we find ourselves in right now. And while some cyber attacks by state-sponsored syndicates and hackers can be very sophisticated, I have to say in many cases we can take simple steps to protect ourselves. So we're not helpless, but the challenges can be significant. But there are things that we can do to protect ourselves. And that's part of the event that Senator DiPalma has put on tonight, and we have been doing this now 5 years running. And again, I'm proud to be a part of the effort. So basically, I'll start by saying that we have to be aware of social engineering techniques. That's where an attacker basically convinces you to provide them with access to your account. So this remains, quite frankly, the main approach that hackers use to gain access to our networks, and it really only takes one person or one miscommunication to open a door through the cybersecurity defenses of an organization. Just one person clicking on the wrong thing. So while we need new technology, for example, to better protect our networks. We all have a personal responsibility to make sure that we're each doing our part in this fight. So let me start off by saying this. What does personal responsibility look like? Well, it basically means backing up your home computer and, importantly, your smartphones. It means using two-factor authentication, like text messages sent to your phone when you're trying to get on your site. It first has it send a code to your one of your trusted devices, basically to help secure your most sensitive accounts like email and banking. It means using a password manager to help create and keep a track of your many passwords. It means putting a password on your home Wi-Fi, and it means keeping your computer and your phone up to date by not clicking on the remind me later option over and over. I'll say that again. It means keeping your computer and your phone up to date by not clicking on remind me later over and over. So and it also means pausing for a moment to think before you click, whether you're on a link or an email attachment. Think before you click. It's really important. So finally, and I hope you just say this, I want you to look at my office as a resource. Just as I'm committed to working in Congress to strengthen federal cybersecurity, I'm also committed to ensuring federal cybersecurity resources are available to all Rhode Islanders. So as you practice good cybersecurity at home, let me just close by saying that I pledge to you that I'm going to keep working in Congress to improve our security in Washington, D.C. and nationally. And together, I know that we can ensure that we're all safe in cyberspace. So all the best. I want to just say thank you again to Senator DiPalma for putting this event together. I know it's going to be a lively discussion, and I'll be able to stay for a few minutes, but just wanted to say again, thank you for having me, and it's great to be with you this evening. And let me turn the floor back over to Senator Lou DiPalma. Thanks, Senator.
Congressman, thank you, and thank you for continuing to be a leader as you have, as I said, not just at the state, but at the national level. And that getting a national cyber director only happened because of you, period. It's just that no one should think anything other than that the United States of America has a national cyber director because of Congressman Langevin. I'm sure other people were involved in some of the discussion, but you were the leader in doing it. So thank you for being with us tonight, and thank you for co-hosting again with me for the 5th year. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I now want to do a brief welcome intro to, I call him Colonel Michael Tetrault, the Rhode Island Cybersecurity Advisor. Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Congressman Langevin. I appreciate your leadership in Congress, and obviously I'm a direct benefactor of that as a member of CISA, starting there in February with a new position created by Congress along with the agency, which will be 3 years old next month. And I feel like after 30 years of being in the IT cyber field, I finally landed my dream job. So it's great to be as a native Rhode Islander here to support Rhode Islanders and help us all be more cyber resilient and hopefully work towards mitigating a lot of these attacks that are happening to people. I have a little presentation I'll just put together, walk through. I'll have these available for folks if they need them, but I'm just going to touch on a few different topics. So a little bit about what the agency is and what I bring to Rhode Island for all of our entities here to help them be more cyber resilient. The title of it is a team sport, and that's really what it is. I try to be a partner and be part of the team and really help folks be able to understand what the threats are, help them understand ways to mitigate risk, how to improve their cyber resilience, help them in their assessments and promoting of programs and building programs and response plans. I also do a lot with helping with education to make them aware. And I also like to listen. I go in and I'll do a resiliency review where I'll listen. We'll pose a bunch of questions and listen to the dialogue and the discussion and really help put that together and build a way to help reduce their risk. And then ultimately, I'm here to coordinate. I can help coordinate cyber responses. I have been doing this for quite a while. As the congressman and the senator have said, I actually did just get out of 31 years in the military and 18 of those as a CIO of the National Guard, where I was able to still do a lot of what I'm doing now, just in a different capacity, just a different department in the same big company. So it's great to be able to do that. A lot of what we talk about with cyber risk reduction is talking about this thing of resilience. We talk about resilience in healthcare, right? How are you resilient? I eat healthy, I may exercise, monitor blood pressure, go to the doctor, those kind of things. It's not something you necessarily create. It's a set of actions that you take on that help improve what you're doing. So that same concept applies to cyber resilience, right? We have ways that we can identify and mitigate risk, work at understanding what our vulnerabilities are and what some of those incidents are. What's an event and when does it become an incident? When does it become a bad incident? There are things you can do across the three dimensions of people, process, and technology. Folks tend to think that IT and cybersecurity is purely the job of the IT folks or the people who are good with computers. While that is a pretty important dimension of it, there's also a huge education component and understanding what the bad guys are doing, how they're trying to socially engineer people, how they're trying to trick people into clicking on malicious links or providing information they probably shouldn't be that can further lead to compromising systems and information. So it's important to understand all of that. And how do you secure all of these assets in your organizations and at home for that matter? And assets are not just computer assets like we tend to think about. Assets can also be the information that you have stored on those systems. It can be the technologies obviously support it. It can be the facilities where these assets operate, and it can also be the people that operate these assets, right? So we like to think about those four aspects: the people, the information, the technology, and the facilities, and they all work together. Another big part of it is working with your external partners. You may have a pretty tight operation, be pretty cyber resilient, but the folks that you rely on as your vendors or your support may not be. And again, you can draw a parallel to your private life as well. If your service providers, companies that you work with, are they keeping your information private and not letting it be compromised? When we look towards cyber resilience, we like to look at this flow. This is a framework, kind of like a mental model to think about, where we start from the left and work to the right. And it's a continuous loop. You can see there's a feedback loop at the bottom. But we want to go from identifying. We need to know what we have. A lot of times folks just want to jump right in and start doing penetration testing and network scans and all these complex a la carte services when they truly don't even have a true list of all of the assets that they have across those four different asset categories. So we really want them to understand what is it you have first, and then let's look at where are those assets on a scale of risk? You know, do you have really old operating systems? Well, we need to tackle that first, and before we get to some of the newer things, and also look at some of the disruption management. And what is your cyber response plan? We look through 5 phases. We generally base a lot of what we do on the NIST cybersecurity framework. And there's 5 phases. And really the first 3 are how do you prepare and protect yourself. And then the last 2 are, you know, you did a pretty good job, but the bad event still happened. So now we have to go into respond and recover. So you got to build those plans to do that. And then ideally, you want to be able to exercise those plans. Nothing, just like a fire drill, right? We have fire drills. You have a fire drill plan at work or at your house. We have to get out there and exercise, make sure everybody understands the plan. Are there problems with the plan? Are there things that we need to adjust? Are there things we could do better? We could do different. So that's this whole cycle of working towards cyber resilience. Again, back to kind of a correlation to those 5 phases of the cybersecurity framework, right? So we have this preparation phase. You know, how are our staff trained? Do we have enough tools and resources? Do we have the awareness? Are we aware of what the threat environment is? You probably heard a lot in the news about ransomware. That's the biggest threat that we have going right now against a lot of different sectors. So we really try and raise awareness about that. CISA has a stopransomware.gov website that has all kinds of information about it to help you get educated. Then how do you identify what's going on? How do you know when you're being attacked? How do you know when something bad is happening? What do you have in place for a plan to contain it? Whether that's reaching to a third-party vendor to help you with the containment, or you have a talented IT staff, or you have people you can turn to help you. Understanding how to contain the damage and really limit it is important. Then obviously, once you contain it, ideally you'd like to eradicate it. A lot of this can be done even just at home if you have antivirus software, anti-malware software. I have it running on my personal computers at home for my family. And it's important to make sure that those systems can detect and eradicate those things before they really are able to launch and compromise your systems. Again, if the bad event happens, how do you recover? What do you have for backups? Do you have offsite backups? Do you keep backups at a different location? You keep them in a safety deposit box at the bank? Do you have a backup at a friend's house or a family member's house that you can go to if your local system is compromised as well? All things to think about, right? And then we have this post-incident phase. How do we do? How good do we do at protecting? How good do we do at responding? What can we do better? What were we missing in our plan? What can we update to make things better so that next time, in theory, we won't be hit again? There are many organizations that actually do end up having malware outbreaks and do have attacks. And they scramble and recover, and then they recover and say, oh, we did great. We're back and running. And they never get back to the root cause of why it happened. And they end up being a victim several weeks later, all over again. So they get caught in this vicious cycle. So you really have to go back and say, what do we need to do to not have that happen again? A big part of that is what I do as a cybersecurity advisor is I actually do a lot of cyber resiliency assessments. We have a flagship product we have called the Cyber Resiliency Review. CISA and Department of Homeland Security put a lot of money into developing that. And we can go into organizations and look at an organization holistically from the dimensions of people, process, and technology and help them understand where they are on a maturity level and where they can work to improve across 10 different domains that we assess. You can't fix what you don't know is broken, right? In a lot of cases. In our car, sometimes we get the lights, the warning lights that tell us when things aren't working right, and we take it to the mechanic and they can figure it out. But if you don't have that, how do you know that you have something that's actually broken or that your system's been compromised? So you need to know what you can work on to be more resilient. This is some of what we look at, again, on a kind of a scale from the top would be your executive C-suite, as we call it, your organization, holistic look as a cyber resiliency review. And then we can drill all the way down to the more technical IT-related type assessments. So you see that we can do vulnerability assessments. We can look at architectures and scanning and cyber hygiene and spear phishing campaigns to see if people have been trained on not clicking on links, as well as some other technical evaluations. So it's a full suite. I generally like to start at the top with the look at the organization, and then from there determine where an organization needs to put some emphasis. And then from there, we can kind of develop a plan to go through and do some of these additional technical assessments as well as help them develop things like policies, procedures, and potentially, additional, bring in additional resources, contract resources, whatever they need to become more resilient. This is just a quick menu. There's a lot on the screen. Again, these will be available. I call this the menu, the CISA menu for what we have here. I'm part of an integrated operations team that works here in New England. I cover Region 1 as part of my team. I'm assigned to Rhode Island, but we are Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And we work as a team. I have my counterparts in other states, and we can cover for each other when needed. We also had surge capacity with other regions, as well as the main team out of Virginia. But again, this is some of the things that we do. We also have a protective security advisor here in Rhode Island, a good friend of mine, Eric, who I work with regularly, who also helps look at some of those facility assets. So he's great. And then down the bottom are some of those a la carte specialty services that we can work with the team down in Virginia. What we affectionately call CISA Central. A team of thousands of real technical cyber folks that can conduct some of these services to help really look at some of those areas where there may be some weakness. Again, typically things that would be uncovered from a CRR or an external dependency review or some of those other technical assessments. This is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We are now squarely into week 3, getting ready to head into week 4. It seems like October just flew by. But if you go out to CISA.gov, we have a lot of great products. I will say the team down south does a great job putting together some real good products that are easy to look through, helpful both at home with your families as well as in the office. I strongly suggest or encourage you to take a look at that. All free, all paid for by taxpayers. So feel free to take a look, use whatever you want, download whatever you'd like that you find useful. I like to call it the free chicken. It's always good to get some of that. And a lot of those documents can be helpful in just building your own plan. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is certainly one of those. These are the themes for these 4 weeks. Kind of dovetailing on what the Congressman had talked about, the 4 cybersecurity essentials, right? How do you protect yourself better online? We like to tell folks, make sure that if you're using wireless, obviously secure it down with some type of decent password if it's not already secured in that way. Keep your systems up to date. Don't click the remind me later. Be diligent about trying to run those, on your smartphones. I typically will run an update and, put the phone down for the night and let it do its thing overnight. Same thing with your computers. Don't let it back up too long. Those updates really fix a lot of vulnerabilities and can really help protect you. If you connect it, protect it. That's a good way to do that. A lot of you are probably dealing with this thing of multi-factor authentication or 2-factor authentication. You'll see a lot of commercial websites now require you to put in a cell phone that has text capability or an email address. And when you log in with your username and password, it'll then send a text or an email to that predetermined address and then send you a unique code that you have to put in to continue on. That's really helpful because if someone steals your password and tries to log in, unless they've stolen your cell phone or your email account as well, it's going to be a little more challenging for them. Certainly not, 100% flawless, but certainly much better than not having it at all. So if you have an opportunity to do that, it creates that extra step. It takes a few extra minutes, but I can certainly tell you it is worth the effort for sure. Just another little quick look at some of those resources I was referring to. We have a great cyber resource hub. You see that URL down there for CISA.gov. Again, talking about our resiliency reviews and some of the content of what we do. A lot of great documents out there that you can take a look at to really get kind of up to speed. I will say these documents are a lot easier to go through than trying to read the NIST cybersecurity framework. Excellent document, but very detailed and very technical. These generally tend to cull it down a little and really present it in a way that's a little bit easier to get through and digest. A real great product we have is the ransomware guide. Again, this is a great thing for your home or your office. I recommend taking a look through there. It has some great things to think about, some steps you can take to help mitigate risk and not become a victim to ransomware. Some great checklists in there. Certainly things that you may find useful. So I certainly recommend taking a look at that. Again, more products looking at essentials for leaders, right? I like to engage leadership and say, what are you doing as the leader? What are you doing? What's your staff doing? How are your systems? What do you have for data? What's your response plan? What are you going to do when the bad thing happens? So these kind of guides are nice. This is just a sample of it, but you can go through there and see some of the cyber essentials that really can get you thinking about how to implement a program in your own organization. And, we have some workforce training guides as well. If you're looking to try and hire cybersecurity staff, there's some ideas in there. I know that's a challenge. The demand is certainly outstripping the supply. I teach at New England Tech and try and get folks through that program to go into the cyber field. But it is a small pipeline. So trying to build that is really something, CIS is focused on. And I certainly, if you're in that position with your organization, certainly take a look at this. We're trying to improve the nation's cybersecurity, right? The president had put out an executive order. And what was really important about this is that he wants the federal government to be a partner with the private sector. And that's huge. That's a big statement, a bold statement, certainly something I enjoy doing. And try and leverage all of this talent and use CISA as a central repository to help organizations understand what they can do better to improve their resilience and reduce their risk, both in operational technology and information technology. So it's certainly something I'm happy to be a part of. And again, there's key pieces in there about how to remove barriers to this, trying to get through a lot of the bureaucracy and the red tape, get that out of the way, and help us have a better playbook for doing that. The future of this just recently was announced by CISA. Our director, Jen Easley, is proud to announce this joint cyber defense collaborative. This is taking that presidential directive and putting it into practice, developing this system or this organization within CISA to help create that partnership between the public and the private sector. Share insight, share threat information, have an understanding of what can be done to mitigate things. So these are all great things. And if you're interested, again, it's right off of CISA, JCDC. It's right off the main page. It's relatively new. I mean, the ink is still drying on this. It's so new. So it's really something we're going to be doing more of. And I'm certainly going to leverage here in Rhode Island with the partners that I support. Just some final points, some takeaways that I'll just leave you with is cyberspace is here. It's a medium on how we do things. Everything we do today depends on it, whether it's controlling our homes, getting those packages via Amazon or your favorite online retailer, how you have your kids connect to school, how I teach. A lot of my stuff is online, how I connect, how we engage through social media, through email, through video conferencing. It's here to stay, and cyber attacks are right along with it, here to stay. And it will continually evolve. The threats will continually evolve as long as there's an opportunity for someone to do something bad or make a buck. It'll certainly be done. So practice, understand what the threats are, understand what you can do as an individual or as part of an organization to minimize the risk that you potentially can bring to the organization. Don't be a victim. And obviously have a plan. Some people think that I'm too small or too obscure. No one will ever come after me. It doesn't quite work like that. There are some targeted attacks, but most of it is just the luck of the draw, or the bad luck of the draw, as it were. Your system's vulnerable. The malware gets into your system and starts going to work without you knowing it. And then next thing you know, you're the victim. And it had no idea who you were till it got in there. And then, the bad guys come in, can kind of piece things together, see what you're worth for charging for ransoms, and then off you go. And it's a team effort. That's how I started this presentation. Cybersecurity is a team effort. I'm here as part of the team from CISA, from the federal government. And I certainly been doing some great engagements with a lot of cities and towns throughout Rhode Island. I continue to do that. It's been a great first 9 months on the job here. And I'm looking forward to really ramping it up even more as we go into through the end of this year. Remember, people, process, technology. It's not just the IT guy's job. It's not just the IT security team. They're an integral part. They're a critical part. But everyone's in this together. You need to make sure that people are trained. They understand. You have the processes in place to catch those things, to help with folks not being socially engineered. It all comes together as a team effort. And our goal is ultimately in a business world is to protect the confidentiality of our systems and our information, ensure that the integrity is there, that things aren't being changed that shouldn't be, and make sure they're available when we need them, right? That's what we expect. We expect that when we get on to do our online banking. We expect that when we get online to check an order on a status on our order. We expect all of that to be available, to be private if it needs to be private, and obviously be correct, not be fooled with. So I'll just leave it with the federal government. We are a partner in cyber resilience, and certainly CISA is lead with that. We are growing at a crazy rate, and a lot of that is thanks to Congressman Langevin and his actions, both here in Rhode Island and at the national level, helping to clear roadblocks for our agency to do the important work we need to do to help out all of the citizens and everyone in the United States. I personally am lucky I get to focus on my hometown and my backyard, working out of my office here in Cranston. So great to be here, and thank you to Senator DiPalma. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk. I'll hand it back to you, and I'm available for questions. Certainly, I'll just go to, if you want to throw up the last slide on the side there, you can see my email address, my cell phone for work. If you're interested in reaching out directly to me, I'm certainly here and available.
Colonel, thank you very much. I think what we'll do now, and thank you for the very insightful presentation, we'll have Ben try and translate some of the questions or questions that have been made, and I suspect you'll be the one answering those. So I will try, but we'll have the questions go to you, Colonel, and go from there. Over to you, Ben.
Good evening, Senator. Good evening, Colonel. Thank you guys for having me as well. We have a couple questions. Number one, what's the latest on stopping scam phone calls?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I get those as well. The ones that trying to sell you your car warranties. That is not something that falls under CISA's purview. That falls under the FCC and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. And I know that is something that is really, it's personally irritating to me. What I can say is that, that is something we need to constantly, we should be elevating to our elected officials and make sure that they have a voice. I know Senator DiPalma, you're on this, but certainly something that can be done at the state level and the federal level. In my personal opinion is we need to really, hold the telecom providers accountable to what is your vetting process for handing out phone numbers? How do you have a process for understanding if that is going to be used for these practices, what I would consider abusive practices, or are they just interested in making a buck because they sold a phone, sold a phone service? I know that some of them come with this migration to voice over IP, where it's no longer the hardwired phone system. It's coming through internet traffic. That makes it more challenging. But again, I think that we're at a point where the legislature needs to be involved to kind of hold organizations accountable to allowing that to happen. So that's what I can weigh in on that particular question. I do see one in the comments here from Rory, protecting PHI, any specific software better than others. You're talking about protecting health insurance information or personally identifiable information. There are a lot of various products. I'm really not supposed to give one over the other. What I would say is what I find to be very helpful when I was doing product evaluations in my previous career is if you can get a hold of Gartner Group. Gartner Group does some great looks at different suites of solutions, if you will, and you'll see it done as an analysis of the magic quadrant, they call it, and they'll lay out all of the different products. So in this case, they would lay that out. Okay, for folks with disabilities. So, again, Gartner Group studies are an excellent resource to find where they'll look at all of the major players in a particular space. In this case, we'd be talking about protecting software for disability health and that kind of information. They'll do a great job of assessing where they are. So I would recommend turning to those Gartner Group. They usually called Magic Quadrant is what you want to throw in Google for that and get those. I will say that the other thing you want to think about when you're doing that is it's not just it's not just having the software that's the magic bullet, right? We all totally want to buy. Let me go buy a solution or get a vendor to make the bad thing go away. Again, think process, think people, right? You can have a great solution in place, but you got to think about the folks in your organization that are handling that information. How do you compartmentalize? How do you restrict? What are your processes for handling that information? What is allowed to be sent via email without being encrypted? What's allowed to be sent via fax or hard copy through the postal service? So think of it holistically from those three dimensions. Have trained users, have a process, have policies. Make sure you have a good policy in place that you can hang your procedures on. And then obviously the software and the backend can help you do that. So let me know how you make out with that, Rory. And obviously if you need to reach out more, I'm here. So feel free to hit me up more and I can help you navigate the waters of Gartner Group if you need me to.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you for jumping into the comments and seeing the questions as they come. That's fantastic. Contact information is being bought, sold, and traded on Pingtree software. How is the state and federal government stopping the sale of contact information on private platforms?
I'm going to pass it over to Senator DiPalma. There you go.
Yeah.
So Ben and the Colonel, and as the Congressman Langevin mentioned earlier, I do sit on a National Council on State Legislatures Cybersecurity Task Force and Data Privacy Subcommittee. In fact, I was just in Washington, D.C. about a month ago on that very topic. I was talking with one of my colleagues on the House side. We plan to introduce some legislation which has been passed in California, I believe it's Virginia as well, and now Colorado, with regards to the storage, sale, opt-in, opt-out, meaning opt-in, I want my data to be used for whatever. I want to opt out anybody collecting my data. So we plan to introduce some legislation in January to address that very topic. And I think we should be able to be successful with it because in talking to some of the trade organizations, because data is money. Categorically, the data is money. It is. And the analysis that can be done with regards to the kinds of products I might purchase, they want to I say target in a positive sense, could be a negative sense as well, but they may want to advertise to me based on the kinds of things I purchase. And it happens to us all the time. If we buy something online, or if we have a Alexa, it's hearing what we're talking about, and we go to our iPhone and we find out there's the product. How did that just happen? And the only thing you can relate it to, you just had a discussion with a person in your presence where you discussed that. So we're going to look at figuring out how can we look at the data that's collected via opt-in, opt-out, but being able to protect that. So stay tuned.
All right. Thank you very much. That's a little thing, by the way, just anecdotally, like the opt-in versus opt-out with the new Apple iPhone update, where they are now requiring you to opt in to letting apps track you off app. Little things like that. I mean, those things make a huge difference for feeling secure. So I love that you're doing that. Thank you very much.
And Ben, if I could just articulate one other piece. Someone talks about, as you bring up the apps on whatever kind of smartphone somebody might have. One of the apps, from what I'm told, I have no facts or data to corroborate it, but I've heard it from several folks, is that the app that typically will collect the most location data of where you spend your time is the weather app. Why? It needs to tell the weather where you are, as opposed to some others where maybe not so much a map app or something else, a health app. But the weather app, if you expect weather data, it needs to know where you are. So it is one of the apps that will want to track and know where you are, always have that data, which is not necessarily always a good thing to have.
Over 40% of unemployment claims are fraudulent. This is a question. Over 40% of unemployment claims are fraudulent. How can the three private credit bureaus be trusted? I don't know if you guys want to answer that.
Well, so this is something that I actually a good friend of mine does IT security for the state of Rhode Island, and a couple of challenges with COVID as far as that goes. So the problem is, first of all, Equifax being breached. That is just not acceptable, right? That's just not acceptable. But I think what then happens is once that data is breached, it's out there for people to buy. Again, information is king, and they buy the information and start filing the fraudulent claims. I can't tell how many people I talk to on any given day that say, Yeah, somebody told me that my HR office called me and said I was filing for unemployment and I'm not unemployed because their information is compromised. I know at least within the state of Rhode Island, they've had to put in a lot of processes and controls to do that. A good example is a claim, an unemployment claim can't be filed from a network address outside of Rhode Island, Florida, and Canada because of state law says that's where unemployment claims can be filed in Rhode Island. So if I'm over in the Middle East or I'm over in one of the over in Russia or wherever, and I try and file a claim online, that's not going to work. So that wasn't always in place. So you have a lot of those systemic controls that you can have in place to do that. But at the end of the day, it's just good old fashioned fraud, right? Somebody pretending to be somebody they're not. And I think the credit bureaus certainly need to be, just like anybody else, need to be held accountable. I mean, I've been in the federal government for almost 20 years now, and the OPM breach, I know all of my information has been compromised, and who knows where it is. So again, it's back to that, what I've been saying, people, process, and technology, right? You want the technology to help, but be aware that what can happen and what some of the scenarios are as a person, and then have those processes in place to try and at least reduce some of the rampant abuse of this stolen data.
And Ben, with regards to our labor and training, and Director Weldon does a phenomenal job, even if he is a Red Sox fan, but we'll put that aside for a minute. Being a Yankee fan, I can say that.
Oh, here we go.
Though I do own a donut. That was our bet. But from the Department of Labor and Training perspective, he's doing a phenomenal job there. But in fact, just tonight, I've been in contact with someone from Universal NBC News in New York, they did a piece a couple months ago about unemployment insurance fraud. It was a big issue in the country. It still is to some degree, not as much as it was since some of the benefits have been eliminated, and many folks have come off the list because of the time expiring. Though we in Rhode Island, I think it was tens of millions of dollars that we know about as real fraud. I had someone apply for unemployment in my name. They were able to get 1 week because of the changes in some of the processes that are made. And then we needed to do that to get folks the money when they needed it. If it's any consolation, and it shouldn't be, but if it's any consolation, in talking with my colleagues who serve on the National Council on State Legislatures Cybersecurity Task Force from California, I think they had lost in the vicinity of about $2 billion with a B, $2 billion in fraud. And because all the information gets filed appropriately, it gets filed goes to a US bank or an internet bank, and very quickly goes overseas so they can't get the money. So back to you, Ben. You were on mute there, Ben.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I appreciate your elaboration on that. We have one more question, and we also have a comment. I'll get to the comment first. The comment is from Rory about some comments that you made a few minutes ago, Senator. And he says that the Red Sox are still playing while the Yankees are watching from the bench. So,
well, I know Rory well. Rory's a she. She's a good person. I've been watching the Yankees on the History Channel. So I get to say that.
Well done, Rory.
Very nice. We have a question. Is the phone number obsolete with so many scams coming from the majority of phone calls that anybody gets in a given day are scam phone calls, scam text messages from phone numbers. There's a thing that's happened a couple times to me and my friends where people will not even from a phone number, but they're able to mimic the contact in your phone.
Yep.
That's what. So, like, is the phone number obsolete, and what do you do about that?
I don't think they're really not mimicking the phone and your contacts coming in, because they're able to spoof the system by using someone else's number. And I believe the Colonel will talk more about this, I suspect. It's more so from a voice over IP perspective, where you're able to change that data via electrons as opposed to over the network, as opposed to over a hardwired phone in your house. Colonel, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I mean, a lot of it has to be. So, again, it's back to this, the integrity, right? And when you sign up for a phone number, this is back to our lead out question is when you look at, my case, I have Verizon, so I have a Verizon phone number. I've had the same phone number for over 20 years. I don't even answer that phone when somebody calls the house. They call my cell phone. I have it more for, other purposes, but I think that a phone number, even a cell phone number, that's assigned from a carrier, a carrier that we can hold accountable, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever it is, carries some value because there should be a vetting process. There typically is. You have to show a driver's license or those kind of things. We can argue the merits of how effective that is, but there is a process, and hopefully that process is followed. And that kind of in a way creates, I know when I get a call from my daughter and her phone number, I know that's hers. I'm also paying the bill, so I know what that number is. But when you talk voice over IP and a lot of these WhatsApp and these different applications that are out there where they grab a pool of unused numbers and cycle them through, and there really is no accountability. They're not checking your driver's license. You can sign up and get whatever phone number you want and be whoever you want and then throw that away. It's I almost draw the parallels to the days when people would use payphones. When they had to make a call and didn't want anybody to know where they were calling from, they go to a payphone. So you've just got that now in digital means, and this, voice over IP just facilitates that and makes that even easier, and then also crosses national boundaries. So that becomes another problem when you have these activities being housed and done outside of the U.S. and outside of U.S. jurisdiction. It becomes even more of a challenge. So it's almost, again, back to a buyer beware. Understand the process, understand phone numbers can be authentic or they may not be. And it's really, be skeptical about things that don't, if it doesn't seem right or you've got a, gee, that's weird. It probably is, right? Go with your gut in a lot of cases, and also stay educated on what it is. And, that's a lot of it, would be great to have systems that could stop that 100% or laws that could stop that. But sometimes it's not realistic. So the onus becomes on us, the individual, to be the educated consumer and the smart user of technology and understand how it can be abused.
I actually have one more question, and this is from me. And you don't have to go into the specifics of it, but is misinformation categorized as a cybersecurity risk?
It is categorized as a national security risk. And in fact, there's a big push on this, specifically in the election security space. The misinformation, disinformation campaigns that have been shown to influence elections over the last several years. So that is certainly something that is in CIS's wheelhouse, along with other entities. I know in Rhode Island, Secretary Gorbea and the Board of Elections is very much in front of that. That is a big reason why there's a big push to have federal and state organizations try and take advantage of the .gov domain. There's a vetting process to have that. So I know if I'm going to stateofrhodeisland.gov or ri.gov, I know that there's there's a federal government checks and balances in place verifying the process and understanding where that information is being housed and how it's being fed into the internet, so to speak, versus an ri.com or ri.info or any other extension you have on a domain. It could be anywhere. There's really no set controls. When the internet was built, it only had 6 high-level domains when it was originally built: the .gov, the .mil, .edu, .com. There's other ones that have expanded since then. So, if you get back to some of those basics, the 6 core high-level domains, that's something that you can use in your marketing and in your communication out to folks, that this is the authentic place to go. If it doesn't say .gov on the end, it's a spoof or it's a knockoff or it's a misinformation, disinformation. That's a big reason why CISA took over the .gov from GSA. They were charging fees. We said that makes no sense. This is run by the taxpayers. So we're really having a big push now to get a lot of the cities and towns in Rhode Island on the .gov. to really help with that as a one tool in the toolkit against the misinformation, disinformation that's out there.
That was one of the that was one of the things I participated in producing some PSAs for the towns for the vaccine rollout back in March and April. And I was shocked, honestly, at how many municipalities in Rhode Island were using a .com rather than a .gov.
Oh, yeah. Yep. There's a lot of them.
I mean, I was talking to the town manager and putting up the thing on screen and going, "Is that the right website?" I don't feel like I trust that website.
I just got an updated list today from the state on who's on and who's not. So that's on my to-do list right now to work.
Thank you very much for all of that, and thank you both for your time today.
So Ben, we're going to go to just before Colonel. I think wasn't the other original ones was it .net? I think as well.
Yeah, .net. That was the other one. Yep. For the internet service providers. You got it. Look at.
I'm giving my age away because I was using .net when it came out a lot of years ago, 40 years ago, I think now. So.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So Ben, if we can go to the probably 2 slides. The next one was a Q&A and wrap up, if you don't mind. So if we can stay with this slide just the way it is. So folks, we're almost getting to the end of our time together. I wanted to be able to leave you with some things you can use after tonight. So this information here and the link is on the top. Hopefully it's still active. It was the last time I checked of where this information came from, mozilla.e.mozilla.org. But about passwords, and you hear about strong passwords. What's not a strong password? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, and password. Most commonly used ones on the web. I'll come back to that in a minute. Just switching the letter to symbol. Hackers know that, and they'll do that. Changing a 3 to a @ sign, whatever it is. Avoid your favorite sports teams. Mine is not Yankees 1961 when Roger Maris hit 61 home runs. That would not be one that I would use because people will know I'm a Yankee fan. Don't use a single word. Some of the common ones are there. Use a phrase or a sentence as your password is stronger. So here's an example. I was just thinking about this. Maybe every time I come up, think about a different one. This is not mine. I'm not going to give you my password, obviously. But if you're a fan of Victor Hugo, the author, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, you can say VHVHOND. And maybe the O is lowercase. Maybe the O is 0. And then if you want, maybe at the end of that, you put a year the book was written, and maybe a exclamation point at the end, something. And Colonel, thanks for putting that up there about passwords. But use your favorite book. Everybody has a favorite book. Everybody has a favorite book. And clearly, most passwords need to be 6 or 8 characters. They may require a special character. Some don't. So you can modulate some of your passwords on how you do that. Don't use common patterns, as it says there, as many people have. This is not just made up. This is not just silly. Some people have actually done that. Instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, they've done it backwards. And just putting a punctuation mark at the end of a password doesn't make it any stronger. So Ben, if we can go to the next chart. And quickly, what are some 10 simple things and tricks that you can do to protect yourself from cyber risks? When you're not using your camera, cover up your camera. Absolutely. File your taxes early to avoid tax scams. We all know of somebody. I know of somebody who went to file his taxes, got a note back from the IRS, said, "We've already sent you your refund." He ultimately got his money, but it took him months to do that, to know that he didn't file it. As was said earlier, Colonel talked about it, Congressman Langevin talked about, sign up for the free scam alerts from the Federal Trade Commission, and the link is there. Robocalls. We all get them. I don't know how many times, sometimes a day, I get them. And when I say how old my car is, you qualify. There may be a year of a car that I wouldn't qualify. And I'm not certain every time I say, no, I don't want the calls anymore, they still call. Regularly monitor your financial accounts, check for suspicious. That you should do that anyway. With the next one, number 6, this goes back to social media. Some say I don't use any social media. Okay, that's okay. That's good. I suspect you probably use some on whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Snapchat, whatever you might use some two-factor authentication. So I'm going to say I do. So if I'm logging on to one of my social media accounts, it asks me for what's my two-factor authentication code. I got to put my code in. That's why you know it's me. If somebody tried to do it on my behalf, I would get that and know, and I would say, this is not me. And we've also all have gotten requests for friends, quote unquote. I want to be your friend on Facebook, or somebody wants to follow you on Twitter, and they're really not real people because you're already a friend with that person, or you know something about that person. I've had a couple happen to me recently of friends who have passed away, and they've asked me, somebody had sent, wanted to be my friend. Well, you know it's a scam. Phishing scams. One of the biggest issues we have with regards to ransomware attacks or other things have occurred because you get an email from somebody who you believe you know. The name is right there. When you go and look at the email address, instead of being from joe_smith@gmail.com, it's joe_smith@icloud.something.something.com. Don't open the link. The first thing you do, and I've had this happen to me, I got an email from a local business in Middletown. I called them. In fact, it happened 2 years ago tonight that I had the 3rd annual cyber hygiene event. I got an email from them saying, you need to click on this information. We're looking for this. I knew who the person was, but when I looked at the email domain, which is after the @ it was not the domain for that particular business. I sent it back to them. They said, thank you very much. They were able to get on it very quickly and lock down their system. Also, you get a link to click on something or for a particular product, or you've just won. No, you've not just won anything. Don't do it. A PDF file, another thing that could cause your system to come under control is opening up a Adobe Acrobat file. They'll have a .pdf extension because it could have some executable code in there. If you're getting something from someone you're not expecting, and I've done this, I call up the person and ask, were you expecting to send this to me? I received something a couple months ago from the president of one of the Rhode Island colleges. I'm not going to say who. Was not expecting it. I called up the office and asked, and they said, yes, I did send that to you. Okay, we're good. Wanted to be safe. We heard the colonel. We heard Congressman Langevin talk about update the security software on your devices now, not remind me later. We talked about usernames and passwords. One other thing I'd ask you to do with passwords, and we have some legislation in about this, and hopefully we'll get reintroduced next year. We've all purchased network devices for Internet of Things. Each of those come with something about having a password. Up until recently, the majority of them have come, and they come with a password of default of password, PASSWORD. California passed a law that basically said any product produced in the state of California for which a password needed to be entered would come with a non-default password would not come with a password of password, PASSWORD. It would require you to enter a password. That's a way to help protect yourself. We've also heard about the families who purchased internet-enabled cameras, child monitors. We also know about someone who has hacked into those and caused havoc with the family. You don't want that to happen either. And also with regards to the last one there, avoid online shopping scams. If it sounds too good, it probably is. The example we use, we've seen the commercial on TV, a couple of them, but the one you may have been a winner after cutting up the couch only to find out you weren't a winner. Most likely, you're not a winner. Call about it. Not that you can't win, but call about it. And I've received, I won't say from whom, a major retailer asking me to click because my order's available. And I haven't ordered much of anything from this particular retailer in a long time. But the other day I got 4 of those. And they expect, well, after the first one, you may not respond. The second, you may not, but maybe 3 or 4. Wow, they really must have something. We want you to click on it. Please don't. So Ben, if we can go to the last chart. And if you can make it full screen if you like, and then we'll come back. So thank you, folks. Thank you for attending. I hope you were able to take at least 1, 2, 3 things away. And as the bumper sticker on the bottom says, practice cyber safe habits, we all need to do, myself, we all need to do it daily. We cannot not do it. It's no different than bathing, than brushing your teeth, the kinds of things that you do from a hygiene perspective on a daily basis. You need to do that from an internet perspective almost every minute of every day. When you get something and a link to somewhere that you're not expecting, we all need to be vigilant. So thank you for being here tonight. If you're looking for my email is there. It has a .gov email. Facebook account you'll see is there. Twitter website is there as well. And I look forward to any questions or comments you might want to share, and look forward to the 6th annual Cyber Hygiene Event, which will be next October during which month? Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So thank you for joining in tonight. Ben, back to you for any final wrap up or any additional questions we might have.
We do have one more question, actually. I think. Yes, we do. We have a question from Chad about government agencies selling contact info and whether or not that should be permissible, or if that's, I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you're the person to answer that question even.
I don't know that should be permissible.
Yep.
Especially, it clearly should not be permissible without I'll reuse a word I was told in Catholic elementary school, never use the same word in a sentence without your permission.
Yep.
Putting that aside, I don't think that's something that any governmental agency should be in the business of making money off of your data. I'd ask folks, and I want to leave you with this, given my background on what I do on a day-to-day basis and educational background, data is a product. Data is a big product. It will continue to be a big product for the foreseeable and well into the future. Money will be spent on the analysis of the data to basically, I say respectfully, advertise to you, reach out to you, target you in a respectful way for those who do not mean harm, to ensure that if you're looking for particular products or whatever, it's like you buy something from a particular retailer, they send you their catalog. Why? Because you bought something from them. There may be something else they're doing along the way. I realize that's simplistic. What we should expect, and that's why we're looking at legislation here in Rhode Island, other states as well, of being able to protect that data. It is priceless. It is invaluable. And we need to do everything we can to protect that data, while at the same time allowing the appropriate agencies, businesses that you agree to have that data to do the right kinds of analysis to ensure you're getting the information you need. Ben, I want to thank you for everything tonight.
Thank you so much, Senator. I want to take a second actually to thank you and Congressman Langevin and Colonel Tetrault for being so open and answering all of these questions. No question was off limits, and answering all of them to the best of your abilities, giving such vital information that everyone needs, because everyone that's watching this, at least, is connected to the internet and needs to take this stuff seriously. So thank you so much for all of your efforts, and have a good night.
Ben, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.